So about 8 years ago, I sat down and I wrote a short film. And it was a fan short film.
Okay.
I've never done one of these before. I rewatched the trilogy, the first trilogy, and I was just itching. I was like, I know an idea for a fan short. And basically my idea was it would open with like you taking the thing, a piece of cloth over Indiana Jones' head and reveals it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And he's like in the middle of in the desert. And
okay.
I was like, I'll go shoot it in like a desert somewhere or whatever, if I ever film this. It's revealed that the guy who trapped him there comes into frame and he's wearing this white tuxedo.
This is the villain, I assume?
This is the
like
villain.
the big bad?
Who basically wants the diamond, this famous Kohinoor diamond.
Kohinoor diamond? Did you like look up like a...
Well, the Kohinoor diamond was the diamond that the British stole from India.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, well, what I loved and what I liked, what I was proud, I was like, oh, I'm going to implement a little bit of history the same way Indiana Jones does and add my own myth to it. And Indiana Jones had it. He doesn't have it anymore. He hid it because he knew this guy was looking for it. And now he's like kind of questioning Indiana Jones.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And I had Sala in it, who was like right behind him, trapped in the same chair. And they basically, Sala hands him like a small little switch knife underneath the chair. Indiana Jones like releases himself and they get into this whole fight.
They get into a brawl, you know.
And then he eventually gets into he like puts down the guy in the white tuxedo. They get in the white tuxedo guy's car and they're driving. And suddenly, this is when the short film's about to end. Suddenly, they have a gun pointed to Indiana Jones' head from the back seat. Sala turns around. He's like, "Oh my god!" And it's this magician that's been tracking them the entire movie that also wants the diamond. And it just ends there.
Okay.
And so I wrote it. I was like, I'm going to film this. It never happened. But I wanted to start this podcast off by just showing you, like, these movies mean a lot to me.
Yeah. I know, dude.
And I feel like this movie, like, I can understand why a lot of, like, filmmakers, our generation, or even a little bit older, always say, oh yeah, I mean, Raiders inspired me a lot to make movies or whatever.
It sounds cliche to say, but it's such a cornerstone of cinema. You know what I mean? It's just, the whole movie is just good cinema, if I had to summarize in a short way.
Action cinema specifically.
Oh yeah, 100%. Wait, so going back to your short real quick, you made that 8 years ago, or you wrote it 8 years ago?
I wrote it about 8 years ago.
So that's like college territory still.
I mean, yeah, for
That's
sure.
awesome, dude.
I saw it and
I did not know that. That's so funny.
I never told you, yeah. And I was like trying to look for it too. Like this morning I was like going through my emails and Google Docs and I was like, I can't find it.
Did I tell you I wrote a fan... I don't know if I was writing as like a novel. It was all prose. It wasn't written as a screenplay. But I wrote a fan novel, I'll say, fan fiction of Star Wars. Did I tell you that?
No.
I did, yeah, when I was probably like 11.
Oh.
And it took place in the Old Republic era.
Of course it did. Of course it fucking did.
Yeah, it was not. It ain't no Galactic Civil War, Clone Wars.
Because you could do whatever you wanted with it. You were like, I can create my own story with
anyway,
this.
it just reminded me. I thought that was funny.
No, I think like it's a good place to start because it shows how like when you watch a movie, especially people like us, when we watch a movie like this, or anything Spielberg really did, there's an air of magic with it, where you're just like, man, it's so like magical to see Spielberg do his thing, and you want to be a part of that somehow.
Sure.
I want to do all that corny stuff at the top of the show.
Yeah.
But these movies do mean a lot to me, and I'm excited to do Raiders.
Yeah, me too, man. I grew up with the Indiana Jones franchise, which is not saying a lot at all. You know, most people did. But I grew up with them on TV, very kind of scattered. Like, I didn't really sit down and watch them growing up.
Same, actually. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I know, like, growing up, I never really knew I couldn't distinguish the movies between each other. I just saw bits of Temple of Doom, I'd see bits of Raiders, and I'd see bits of Last Crusade.
For a while, I thought, like, when I was a kid, I thought the minecart chase scene that's in Temple of Doom was in Raiders.
Oh, okay.
Like, just because of that reason, though.
Yeah.
Sorry, I bumped into the table. But because of the reason of just, like, it was just on TV, so it kind of meshed together.
Exactly, yeah. I had the same experience.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, just real quick heads up. After we're done with this podcast, we're going to be doing another half hour of a bit of an after show on Patreon only. We're going to share with our patrons some of our favorite action movie set pieces, both by our patrons and from us. So feel free to join the Patreon or hop on if you are not on it yet and are curious about that. It's going to be like another half hour after this.
Yeah. Which one do you hold as like the one you've seen the most?
Oh, Temple of Doom. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because...
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Did that one just air more on TV?
For kids just growing up, I feel like Temple of Doom was the one that's just like, this is balls to the wall, crazy fun.
Yeah, well, and my parents made me close my eyes a lot throughout. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like the part, you know, the human sacrifice, ripping his heart out, and like stabbing the voodoo doll. There's a lot of dark shit in Temple of Doom.
Yeah, and it's funny, like the one I've seen the most is Last Crusade, but Temple of Doom is a close second. But here's what's funny. Before we get into Raiders, I don't think Raiders is my favorite Indiana Jones. Because I think my favorite Indiana Jones is Last Crusade, but that's more for personal reasons. Objectively, if you want to look at which one's the best one, it's probably Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You know what's funny is Last Crusade I'm the least familiar with.
Okay.
Like I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't know if I've ever sat down and watched it entirely in one sitting.
That's wild.
It's really crazy. I know.
Whoa.
I'm kind of ashamed, but I'm mostly familiar with Raiders and Temple.
Okay.
And I'd like to see Last Crusade. I'm not against it. I just haven't
Yeah.
made the time. I've seen, again, I know the opening with River Phoenix and stuff. I remember bits of it that I've grown up
Some
seeing.
Sean Connery bits, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't remember like what the story was. I know it involves the Holy Grail, and you know, but I don't, you know.
Like, you know what's even crazier though? In middle school, I think I've told you this before. I grew up in an Indian household, so I grew up with a lot of Indian movies first.
Okay.
A lot of American pop culture, I kind of missed out on. So I wasn't the kid that grew up with the same type of music and movies that a lot of other kids grew up with. I grew up with a lot of like Indian movies, right? So I didn't hear about Indiana Jones until middle school.
Oh, wow, okay.
And this is going to sound crazy, but until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out in theaters.
Okay, that's cool.
And everyone was just like, Harrison Ford's still going to do this? He's pretty old. Yeah. And that was the whole thing, right? And same thing, I think Temple of Doom was the one that came on TV.
Okay,
and I just caught that, and I was like, oh my god!
Yeah,
Like,
this is a movie.
it was just so much fun. It was like a ride, you know? So
It's funny that you say, like, you know, like, oh, is Harrison Ford still doing this? He's
Right?
getting old. We're having that conversation all over again.
anyways, yeah, now he's doing Dial of Destiny, which is part of the reason why we chose this as like the first episode of this podcast.
Yeah, just got our Indiana Jones gears turning, if you will. And a lot of other people's. I don't know if you've seen online, there's so many video essays and stuff coming out now.
But yeah, I think it's just a great excuse to get back into that
Oh, yeah,
world.
yeah. No, it's great because, you know, Indiana Jones is almost like a... Like, I saw another video essay mention it, but they were just saying how Indiana Jones is sort of a forgotten franchise. Like, a lot of the next generation doesn't really talk about Indiana Jones or hasn't really grown up with it the same way we did.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's so interesting because, like, for me, maybe it's just my perspective and people our age, but I'm just like, thinking that's something like Star Wars to me, where it's just lived on. But maybe it's because it's not as prolific as Star Wars.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Star Wars is like, they're pumping out stuff nowadays. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, like, is just this one movie, essentially.
Yeah, the part of the reason why I feel like Harrison Ford's doing Dial of Destiny, not to go on that tangent, I think he's kind of like, no one else is doing this but me. So I'm going to go guns a-blazing on this. I don't care how old I am, but no one's going to do this but me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, I mean, we'll get to it, but no one else can do it but him. And you can cast and do your fan castings, but no one can do it but him.
Yeah.
I will get to that, why I'm sure we both will. But before that, I like writing these synopses for movies. You know, for our patrons, they've probably seen us do some, like, trial episodes, and I've been writing these like DVD, like back of DVD synopsis for these movies, and I have a lot of fun. So I'm gonna read it out, and Chris doesn't know what I wrote. So
Okay. Do you want me to read it out, or do you want to read it out?
I think I'll read it out because
Okay.
I think I wrote it in a way of where I would read it.
You wrote it with your own voice in mind?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
It's funny because I think we discussed this like off camera, off mic, of like maybe you'll read it, and then when I was writing this, I was like, I got it.
It's my thing.
He's a heartthrob, a globe-trotting archaeologist, and a mediocre professor with unreliable office hours. It's Indiana Jones! You probably spent your childhood in awe of this fedora-wearing hero, but do you remember his first adventure, which included the Ark of the Covenant, Nazis, and a fiery ex-girlfriend? Let's revisit that magical moment and talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nice. He's a heartthrob. That's the first thing you say about Indiana Jones.
Well, also, remember that scene where, like, he's in the classroom and then...
and the girl has the little eyelids that say, I love you?
Yeah, it's like, I like how the movie's very aware of, like, yeah, this is Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I know, right? There's no punches pulled, if you will.
This is a quick tangent, but apparently that was, like, a assistant director's idea. Of like, hey, when she closes her eyes, one of them should have "I love you" or whatever.
Yeah, and it gets him all like blushing, like in the middle of his lecture.
Yeah, I just thought that was like such a great like anecdote of like an AD was like, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to try something?
Something that I'm sure you have in your notes too is screenplay stuff. Lawrence Kasdan came to write this movie.
Yeah, which is like, I just recently learned that. Like I
Really?
said, oh yeah, totally. Like I'm pretty new to the Indiana Jones rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
That's kind of why I was excited to do this, because I know like you're very familiar with, when it comes to Spielberg, super familiar with Jaws, Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
which we'll do in the future. But Indiana Jones was like, you watch them, but it wasn't like you're not knee deep into that like mythos of like the whole series. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. He, wrote one of my favorite movies ever made. It's called The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. What about the screenplay stood out to you? I think I'm just pushing you to start this conversation because I feel like this is your interest.
I mean, like, it's just so smooth. I don't know. It has such a clear and simple structure. Like, it's not groundbreaking from a storytelling standpoint necessarily because it's so simple. It's very, like the movie knows exactly what it is, and it's so confident with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you watch the movie really for the stunts and the action and the spectacle and the charm. Yeah. And, Indiana Jones to say witty little things, but it's not really meant to make you question, what you thought you knew. It's very much like, the fucking bad guys are Nazis. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so, like, cut and dry who the good guys and bad guys are.
The key is what you said. It knows what it is.
Yeah.
And I think if you guys look online, I'm sure some of our viewers or listeners know about this. I don't know if you do. Mm-hmm. It's very exciting. But when George Lucas developed this character, he came up with this character and brought it to Spielberg because, and this comes back to the screenplay, I promise, but like basically Spielberg was in a, not in a rut, but studios weren't trusting him because he made his like first flop.
Which one was that again?
It was, I should know this. Spielberg, I'm gonna look it up real quick, but it was Spielberg at the height of his powers. He did like Jaws and Close Encounters, and
gotcha, yeah.
He just got the ticket to Hollywood, and it was basically he was like, I'm gonna do a comedy, and it just like bombed, and it was like his first bomb.
Oh, I heard about that one. I know, yeah.
1941.
That's the name of the movie?
Yeah, that's the name of the movie. He does it in 1941. Robert Zemeckis wrote it for him. Doesn't do well. Right? And so he was kind of like in a rut. He wanted to do a James Bond movie forever. He's been wanting to do one. And George comes in and he's like, hey, I think I got something better than James Bond for you. But if you take this role, you got to do 2 more of these movies. George Lucas just wanted to be a series.
He was so confident in it, yeah.
And so he came to him. And so there's these like early conversations that were all recorded. And there's transcripts available of the first conversations they had about this character.
Oh, wow.
So there's literally...
I didn't know that, actually. That's funny.
It's 90 pages, and it's multiple days that they all spent in a vacation home of Spielberg, Lawrence Kasdan, and George Lucas just talking about the character.
That's so crazy.
And so I'm going to read a little bit of it. I'm not going to get too down this rabbit hole, but I wrote some down.
Yeah.
This is when, like, George is coming to them, basically saying, I have this character in... Indiana. He's going to be of the same ilk of like Humphrey Bogart in Treasure of the Sierra Madre. He's going to kind of look similar to that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, we're going to do something similar to the 30 serials. And he already talked to Spielberg, but now Lawrence Kasdan is in this. So this is the conversation. Lawrence Kasdan, do you have a name for this person? George, I do for our leader. And Spielberg, I hate this, but go ahead. George, Indiana Smith. It has to be unique. It's a character. Very Americana Square. He was born in Indiana. Lawrence, what does she call him? Indy? George's like, that's what I was thinking. Or Jones. Then people can just call him Jones. But there's conversations Spielberg's having about just like, okay, when he uses the whip, he should use it for multiple things, like not just hitting people, but like maybe he swings it around the girl and twirls it.
Yeah. They had these kind of swashbuckling ideas for the whip.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And Lucas was the one, and this is where I think we can get back to the structure. Mm-hmm. Lucas was the one who was like, I think there should be like an action sequence every 12 to 15 minutes. And we should leave them at cliffhangers. Each scene should be a cliffhanger, similar to 30 serials. And then we should start a new one. And it should lead like that. And he came up with that format of Indiana Jones that was so revolutionary, which is like fucking every 12 to 15 minutes, there's another set piece with the cliffhangers. And like, how's he going to get past this? And that's the genius of the screenplay behind this movie and the structure of it. That's been copied now, and it's just we take it for granted.
Yeah. Well, and even the whole trilogy stayed true to that structure.
Yeah.
Not even just that movie, but, all 3 of them had that sort of formula to it, and it worked. You know what I mean? It's like, again, like I said, it's just good cinema, because you just go in knowing exactly what you're going to get. You see the spectacle on the screen of Indiana Jones doing crazy fucking stunts,
Why do you think we like watching him so much?
I mean, it's been said before, but I mean, Harrison Ford's performance is incredibly effortless. Like, he does not look like he is acting. He just feels like the character. And in doing so, though, he feels like such an everyman that, like, whenever he sees the danger, it's, like, funny. It's very charming because he's like, oh, like, he just seems so terrified of, like, the giant boulder rolling out or him, dropping his hat and going and picking it up last minute.
I think what I love about him is that, like, and we'll talk about this when we start talking about the action scene specifically, but like the vulnerability he has as a character of just like when he takes that first leap and they're escaping the arrows in the cave in the opening scene, right? He takes that first leap, grabs onto the branch, smiles, and then the branch comes loose and he's in terror.
Yeah.
That sets up the entire character of like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, and he just goes for it even though things might backfire on him.
And it's a little similar to what he did as Han Solo, but it's putting him in a different setting, not just different setting and different clothes, but just different attitude. He's not making quips. It's more just like he's going with the flow and trying to do it. He has some one-liners, but it's not like Han Solo's a bit quippy, right?
Yeah.
And I think Indiana Jones feels more like, this is going to sound weird, but more rugged and American.
Oh yeah, I mean he's not humorous when you first meet him. Like the first opening shot when he walks into frame and it's the back of his silhouette. And then when he, like obviously when the guy pulls a gun at him and he uses the whip to get the gun out.
That's his first entry. He comes into the light.
He comes into the light. It's not like a funny line. He just comes in dead serious. He's intimidating at first.
Yeah, and I think it's like the comedy comes from how terrified he is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing.
Or how tired he is.
Yeah.
He's either tired or terrified, and that's what makes it funny. He's not a comedian.
No, not at all. Well, and I think also it's kind of like a Clark Kent Superman thing that he has, where like when he's a teacher, he's very awkward.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that you mentioned this because in the transcripts, Spielberg's like, oh, sort of like Clark Kent. So it would be like if he has glasses.
Yeah, exactly. He has like kind of dorky shyness, but then when he's out in the field, he's like doing the coolest shit.
Yeah, like that's where he feels comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. That's his thing. He's going out, not treasure hunting. That's Nathan Drake. But he's going and getting.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
artifacts. Artifact collecting.
Yeah, this like passion he has. I just love that like right in like after the whole like explaining what the Ark is and they're going on an adventure, how excited he is. It's like, let's do it, let's go.
Yeah,
you're rooting for him all the way. But I think vulnerability is a huge thing for me of what makes his character so interesting. Yeah. I also think something that's missing in a lot of like modern day movies that I think this movie does really well is how dirty and sweaty it is.
Yeah, this is a sweaty movie. We talk about those sometimes. I don't know if we said it in the Top Gun reaction.
Yeah, no, we did. It's a real sweaty movie.
Because, like, yeah, outside of YouTube stuff, we also talk on our own about, like, movies that are just naturally sweaty, where the characters are just always, like, glistening.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, like, this movie's definitely not a Top Gun level.
Yeah.
But it's not afraid to be like, yeah, we're going to mess him up. We're going to make him look dirty, because guess what? He's been in the dirt. You know what I mean? Harrison Ford's still handsome, and he looks great, and he's cool.
Yeah.
But he's, like, exhausted, and you can tell it and see it in his eyes.
You can practically smell his outfit. You know what I'm saying?
Which is something that I love. I mean, Temple of Doom takes it as far as like when he's at the bridge, like half his shirt is ripped off.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But like, it's something that I really miss. And I watched Dungeons and Dragons, which I loved, right?
Yeah.
And Chris Pine has cited a lot that he's doing a lot of Harrison Ford in that movie.
Yeah.
And you can tell. And Chris Pine is kind of like been doing that with Wonder Woman as well. He's doing a lot of Harrison Ford.
And a little bit in Star Trek too.
I feel like he has that kind of vibe about him, and he's good at it. But something that's missing in Dungeons and Dragons, it feels a little too clean. And they're going on these adventures, and I'm like, I remember even watching Dungeons and Dragons, like, I love this movie. I'm having so much fun. It's better than a lot of action blockbusters that are coming out today.
Yeah.
But it's missing a little bit of like that.
That grittiness.
And I was like, man, Indiana Jones always had that. That's what made it so much fun to watch.
Yeah, sure. And, Lord of the Rings has that too.
I mean,
we can list off a lot of great movies that do that sort of thing. But yeah,
not all movies have to have that. It depends on the tone. But if you're going to put your characters in these settings, what makes them indelible is their vulnerability and their humanity.
Sure. Oh, 100%.
You want to talk about Marion a little bit?
Sure.
I mean, we're going past this real quick. Her introduction is like amazing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, her doing the drinking back and forth with that other dude. Was that a dude or was that a lady? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I think when I first saw it, I thought it was like just a strong old lady.
That's what I thought too. But it's like a classic Spielberg thing where it's a oneer. It just goes back and forth to them. And then the most hilarious moment is when the other person takes that shot and you think they're fine. And then they're just like,
Oh, and then just falls over. Yeah. For listeners who didn't see him, he mimicked falling over like in the scene.
yeah.
And it pays off too. Like they set up Marion's character as being like a strong drinker, obviously, but then it pays off later when she pretends to be drunk.
I literally wrote that in my notes.
Yeah.
I'm like, you think it's just a fun flair introduction thing, but this script is so tight.
Yeah, it's actually a tight screenplay thing.
I'm like, everything they're introducing, they'll bring it back and make the character feel a little deeper.
Yeah.
What do you think of Marion?
Oh, I think she's great. Yeah, no, she's my favorite. I mean, I haven't seen Last Crusade in a while, so I can't remember the
If you
the
haven't
Jones
seen
girl.
it in a while, then I won't spoil it for
Okay,
you.
cool.
Yeah.
But I like her a lot better than the Jones girl in Temple of Doom.
Then Kate Capshaw, the one that Kate Capshaw plays.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, which, I've heard some people say, well, at least they did something different, which, props to them for still changing it up, not making another badass.
That one's lame. We can
Okay.
see that. Let's not try to stop into the blow here.
I'm trying to be respectful still to people who like it,
No, I mean, you can like it, but I mean, let's all admit that it's dated. Yeah, it's
Sure,
funny.
yeah. Which, speaking of dated, though, I remember watching it again when Marion said, like, it's been what you did to me 10 years ago. I was a child. I was in love.
Yeah, that's weird.
I'm like, I can give the benefit of the doubt that she's being hyperbolic.
Yeah.
But there's still like a weird implied age gap between them.
It's something that is like a real early 80s thing.
It still felt weird.
I think it's okay to say that it's weird because it is weird.
It's a weird thing that wouldn't work today if that came out.
Now, one thing that is like, I feel like Marion is looked at like as like one of the best characters, and she is a great character in the Indiana Jones movies, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that like she's a bit overrated because everyone looks at her as like this Sarah Connor type, where it's just like, look how like she's such an active character and everything. But I feel like some of it is a lost opportunity. I think like she's introduced as this like very fiery person that like from the bar scene and onwards you think is going to be super involved in indie stories, especially the way she says it. She's like, you're stuck with me,
Yeah.
Not those exact words, but when she shows the thing,
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
she's literally like, all right, well, you're going to get more than you bargained for. And you're so excited. And then she gets kidnapped pretty quickly. And then towards the end, it's just like Indy's saving her. She's mad at Indy.
Like she just could have been more active in participating in the story.
I feel like they set her up as a character that's very active, but then she it's like a lost opportunity because I love her so much.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I didn't notice it as much when I was watching.
I think something that I thought about was actually, and I know you haven't seen the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, but a positive about that movie was Michelle Rodriguez. Her character was like a best friend to Chris Pine's character in that movie. But she's a great example of to do like a Marion type character, but like make her extremely active in the story.
Sure.
And not in a lame like, look, this girl can pack a punch or whatever. It's more of like, oh no, she has an emotional arc and she like, you're going to care about her.
Yeah, she was treated like a proper character in a script.
Yeah, and I feel like if they were going to set up Marion in that way, I was kind of hoping for a bit more this time around because I remembered her as this like great, well-rounded character, and she wasn't as much of that as I thought she was going to be. I was thinking a lot about Dungeons and Dragons in general. The characters very much felt the same feeling I get when I watch Indiana Jones, which is this like, there's going to be an action set piece here and there, but these characters are so indelible.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier.
Is that a new word you learned, by the way? Indelible?
I heard it one time.
Like, literally today is my first time hearing you say the word, and you've said it twice. Indelible.
No,
what does it mean?
It's an issue. It's like you can't forget about it. They're just like, it's like written in ink.
Got it. It's like set in stone.
Yeah, I heard it in a podcast and I just like the word a lot. I was
All
like,
right,
oh, that's a great way to describe it. I was just like, you can't forget about it. Anyways, all I wanted to talk about, I wanted to kind of expand upon the fact that like this movie inspired a lot of action movies.
I mean, yeah. It's like one of the pinnacle adventure movies. Have you been on the Indiana Jones ride? Do they have that in Disneyland and the East Coast? Or Disney World?
I've been on the Indiana Jones ride, yeah.
Oh, they have it there? I actually didn't know that. I couldn't remember.
I want to say I have. No, I'm thinking of the Mummy ride for some reason.
Okay, yeah. No, the Mummy ride's very good, too.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's a great ride.
But completely different.
I haven't been on the Indiana Jones.
That's pretty cool.
I wanted to wait to bring this up until like we start talking about our action set pieces or whatever.
Yeah.
But when they were talking about coming up with the Boulder run, right? They're in the transcript. Spielberg has a moment of just being like, so what we're basically doing here is we want to create the same feeling that you get from those Disneyland rides.
Huh.
And he said, and he was mentioning how like the arrows come out, and suddenly Spielberg came up with the idea of all these skeletons coming in and flattening them out. He's like, we want to feel like the same progression of Indiana Jones ride, like a new threat every second.
Sure.
Or like Alfred Molina getting like his body getting stuck with an arrow or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, it feels like a Disneyland ride.
Yeah, that's funny. I actually didn't catch that.
Yeah.
It makes sense, though. It totally checks out. The Indiana Jones ride, even down to the line, feels on brand for Indiana Jones.
Is it voiced by Harrison Ford?
That's a good question. I'm actually not sure about that.
I'll look it up while you're talking.
Okay. But basically, like, there's a whole kind of independent original story behind it. It's called, like, the eye, something of the eye. Basically, while you're waiting in line, there's, like, little stone, cobblestone floor, and they have little designs on them, so you're, like, nervous to step on them while you're waiting. But then you'll see, like, there's, like, a well there with, like, a rope on it, and you can hear someone talking, and there's a sign attached saying, "Do not pull rope." And naturally, you pull on the rope.
And do you hear people yell or
Yeah,
whatever?
you can hear like a little kind of sounds. And so it's kind of like it keeps on brand for Indiana Jones to be like, do the thing they tell you not to do,
Yeah, see what happens, action, consequence, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, on the ride...
Yeah.
Apparently, so it says right here, Harrison Ford was asked to reprise his role as Indiana Jones for the ride, but ultimately negotiations to secure Ford's participation broke down in December 1994 for unknown reasons. Money.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, really? You can't just read a couple lines?
It was money. Instead, Dave Temple provided the voice of Jones.
Interesting.
I just wanted to put that out
good,
there.
Good to verify. You're not verify, but,
Fact check.
Fact check.
Yeah.
But point is, I ended up just going down a little bit of the multimedia franchise rabbit hole that Indiana Jones is.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of multimedia surrounding
Exactly.
Indiana Jones,
Have you heard of the Young Indiana Jones TV show?
I have. Apparently George Lucas was part of that, right?
Yeah, it was like a children's educational show. So basically, I looked into the concept. It's narrated by a 93-year-old Indiana Jones, like in present day when the show came out, kind of looking back on stuff he's done.
And like teaching kids about archaeology or whatever?
Kind of, yeah. It's like kind of has its own premise. So they have like different ages of Indiana Jones based on the time period and the story they want to tell throughout history.
Is it an animated show?
No. It was live action.
Wow.
And you know who actually was in it?
Who?
Fucking Harrison Ford did an episode.
Oh my God.
He was in it, like it's in it, not just his voice or a little, like, it took place in 1950s, so it's like kind of post World War II Indiana Jones.
Oh, that's
with like
sick.
He has like a little grizzled beard. Are you looking up pictures right now?
Yeah, I just want to see, and we'll pop it up in the edit. Mystery of the Blues, Young Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, that's like fugitive Harrison Ford.
Yeah, it's like 90s Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
and
the beard always looked good on the man.
I know, right?
That's crazy. That's wild.
They have, obviously a bunch of novels and stuff too. There's one novel straight up called The Philosopher's Stone. It came out before Harry Potter. It's just kind of fun. Just wanted to share. I saw one. It's called Philosopher's Stone.
Are you one of those people that call? I mean, it's the right way to do it, so I'm not going to say like it's the wrong way. What do you do? Do you do Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone? What do you call them? What do you call them?
I'm used to calling it Sorcerer's Stone, to be honest.
I am too, but it's like
objectively, it's correct to say Philosopher's Stone.
But it's so funny whenever someone does say that. I'm always like, don't be pretentious. I'm like, no, but that's the right way.
Pretentious? Yeah, it's not pretentious. That's the title.
Say it. No, I literally become like, say it the American way.
I think it's just more of like you're used to calling it one thing and don't want to feel wrong, so you're just kind of like,
yeah, no, 100%.
Obviously, there's a lot of video games too.
Like which one?
Well, just all video games.
No, I'm talking about like how it's the obvious one is probably Uncharted.
Oh, well, yeah, that too. Yeah, of course.
You're talking about actual Indiana Jones.
I was talking about Indiana Jones games.
Oh,
but yeah, obviously, we can talk about Tomb Raider and Uncharted. Those are two very obvious.
Yeah.
But I played a Temple of Doom arcade game as a kid.
That sounds awesome.
And it wasn't really from what I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have been. Maybe it is good for its time.
Can you do the minecart stuff? I'm assuming.
Yeah, there's a mine where you have to kind of lean side to side.
I feel like that's made for a video game. Yeah.
Yeah, and you, mostly you use your whip to kill snakes.
Got it.
And random bad guys that come at you, you can like whip them and knock them down and run away. I learned about all this through a video called History of Indiana Jones, and Shredded Nerd is the name of the user that did the video. I can pop up a link in the description.
Yeah, we can go give that a plug.
I highly recommend watching that video. It's really interesting. It literally walks through just every Indiana Jones game ever created and how they kind of evolved and which ones improved on the others.
Yeah, which I didn't know. Because it's like with Star Wars, there are so many books. There's so many like video games and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's like so many lores outside of just the movies But I didn't know Indiana Jones kind of had that same thing going for it.
It was mostly in the 90s, funny enough.
Yeah, it might not be as like popular now.
Yeah, it's kind of be like a little bit before our time.
You know, do you want to touch on like because we want to kind of rank our favorite action set pieces.
Yes.
Which I know you're not a fan of list making.
I'm
I kind of forced you into this.
Which I'll go with it because people might be more interested than I am.
It'd also be a great way to talk about the big set pieces instead of just being like, remember when this happened?
Remember when the boulder fell?
Right. But before we get to that, is there anything you want to kind of just touch on for Uncharted or Tomb Raider stuff? Because I feel like we should kind of mention it.
Sure, yeah. Watching Raiders again, I didn't realize, because obviously Uncharted very clearly unapologetically took inspiration from Indiana Jones. That's not even like a, interesting statement. But
100%.
I didn't realize watching again how many of the set pieces is straight up kind of knocked off. And that's okay. I got to make that clear. I'm not criticizing it.
Yeah.
But like down to like Indiana Jones being dragged by rope on the truck. There's a whole ass scene on Uncharted where you're only dragged.
I think I told you about that too. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is so Indiana Jones. And whatever. And I think, because you haven't you don't rewatch these movies as often. It is kind of wild.
But you know what's funny though? One of the key differences, in my opinion, between Nathan Drake and Indiana Jones is you don't really see Nathan Drake act like a dork the way that Indiana Jones has that when he's a professor. Nathan Drake, he's kind of always cool.
He's cool, and he's way more quippy than Indiana Jones.
He's like a child, right? Like he kind of moves like a child. He's very different.
That's the main difference, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. He's kind of like a Ryan Reynolds type thing got going on, Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
Where he's got that one-liner as he's going, and that's what kind of makes him so much fun, right? He's like verbally reacting.
Yeah.
But I think what makes it work in a movie so well, and what makes the movie of Indiana Jones and that character so different, is that Harrison Ford does it with like a smirk.
Yeah, exactly. He feels more of an adult. Feels more macho.
Part of why people loved playing those games originally was like, I get to be Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At least for me, when I started playing
pretty
Uncharted,
much, yeah.
I was like, I want to be Indiana Jones.
That's the pitch for it.
So this is where we start ranking our set pieces. Basically, the way we're going to do this is, and I'm setting the rules because I was the one who wanted to do this.
Yeah,
we're going to go 5 to 1.
Okay.
1 being our favorite. And I'll give my 5, and then you'll give your 5. And if they're different, we'll talk about them.
Sure.
And whatever, and then we'll go from there. So I consider the whole kidnapping Marion a set piece.
You're talking about the sequence with the baskets and like the running around the city with the monkey and all that stuff?
Running around the city with the monkey, the baskets, and the sword fight.
Gotcha.
I consider that whole thing because basically it's chaos in Cairo, right? Pretty proud of that one, Chaos in Cairo.
Did you just now come up with that? Or were you thinking of that?
No, I just came up with that.
Oh, that's pretty cool, man.
That could be like a chapter name when you're going through a Blu-ray and doing scene selections. Chaos in Cairo could be one.
You're such a fucking nerd.
I need to get a steelbook to Indiana Jones. Why don't I have that?
I don't know, man. Get one right now.
Jesus Christ. But that's my number 5. It's not that I like it the least.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. Obviously, there's these iconic moments with it, but out of all the ones, that's the one I revisit the least. The scene I revisit the most is like.
Wait, don't tell me if it's gonna be number 1.
No. I'm talking about the moment that I revisit the most in Kidnapping Marion.
Oh, from within this own scene. Got it. Okay.
The moment that I visit the most in the Kidnapping Marion, the Chaos in Cairo sequence, is the sword fight. And I think everyone here knows the story, right?
Yeah.
Of just Harrison Ford on the day had dysentery because he was eating food there that his body wasn't used to, and apparently they had storyboarded this iconic whip sword fight scene that they eventually do in Temple of Doom,
of which the guy trained for too.
Poor guy trained for so long, and it was gonna be his iconic moment. And Harrison Ford comes up, he's like, listen, I got like 5 minutes and then I gotta run to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then they just came up, and Harrison Ford was the one who was just like,
why don't I just shoot him?
Yeah, now there's a lot of did Spielberg come up with it? Did Harrison Ford come up with it? We don't really know, but from what I've heard of Harrison Ford, we came up with it. And now it's one of those iconic movie moments.
Yeah.
And it's says so much about the character too, just shut up.
Just blast him in the chest.
And then the baskets, I think is just great just because that's one of those things where I just don't see that in movies that often, of that kind of move of Harrison Ford running straight to the camera looking, and now there's all these baskets. It feels like a Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin movie.
Sure.
I was like, wait, which one are they?
Going and pulling them all down and trying to find,
Yeah, it's just iconic, but it's my least favorite out of the 5 we're going to say today.
I put the same one, funny enough.
Sure.
Yeah, same deal. I think it's still an awesome scene, has a lot of character, and has a lot of, I think, like, what I like about the action scenes in Indiana Jones overall, all of them have this, including my least favorites and stuff, have a cause and effect within it. You know, like the Trey Parker and Matt Stone philosophy of screenwriting where they say, this happens, therefore this happens, but this happens.
Right.
Every action scene in Indiana Jones has that. Where
it's like, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
too.
Like everything connects to one thing escalating the scene because of what characters do.
It's beautiful stuff, and it's like what Spielberg's been doing his entire career. But it's so funny that Raiders was one of the first times he got to do like just a straightforward action movie.
Yeah.
And he just fucking kills it. But yeah, that's this entire movie. It's like action consequence and then leads to another action. And another thing that I just really love that this scene kind of highlights is the monkeys cooperating with the Nazis.
Yeah.
I love because nowadays I feel like everyone, and I love animals, but everyone wants to make the animal the cute person, and he's like, he's my little friend, but I love how they make this monkey a Nazi.
Well, and it dies. It eats like a poisoned date.
They're so ruthless to the monkey.
I know.
But I love how like the guy is like talking to the monkey, and the monkey's guiding him this way.
Yeah. He's like jumps on top of Marion on the basket and starts screaming to like ratting her out.
It's such a great move, but that's clearly something that George Lucas and Spielberg were really inspired by, old serials and stuff like that. All right, number 4 is, this might be controversial, because it's pretty popular, but number 4 is the big brawler fight on the tarmac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Okay. I have a reason for this too, which I'll get to once we get to our higher on the list. It's a fucking amazing still, though. Like, I think that's the thing that I love from it, and you can add to this too, but like the thing that I fucking love from it is just that one moment where he's on the plane and the big guy comes out and he's so excited he like takes his clothes off and he's like, ooh.
Yeah.
And he just starts yelling at Indiana, and Indiana's just like, I'm coming. Just like, he does that little like, I'm tired, I'm coming, it's fine.
I know, it's like you can tell he's just done it a million times.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh god, I gotta fight you, Jesus. Well, because
like Temple of Doom is a prequel to Raiders, funny enough, so it's like he's probably just thinking of that guy.
Yeah,
and the guy who got crushed by the rock crusher thingy.
Oh yeah. You know, the whole Temple of Doom being a prequel thing I never really cared for.
Well, it was because they didn't want it to be Nazis again as the bad guys. They wanted to do something else.
That's why Last Crusade does Nazis again. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes
and
sense.
Then they did Russians in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
That's true. I think they're doing Nazis again in Dial of Destiny, but it's like an old Nazi or whatever. Mads Mikkelsen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, but I like it. And what I also like about it is like Marion, funny enough, is very active in that sequence.
Oh yeah. She's climbing in the cockpit and wrestling with the dude, and then the lock gets stuck or she can't open the cockpit.
Which is another great moment. It's just like, never mind, and he just shoots the fucking lock, and it's so good. And like that move that also Indiana does, where he's like, just wait a second, I'll be there. Like he's tired when the brawler comes to him. Mission Impossible Fallout literally does the exact same thing.
Oh yeah, huh?
You remember that?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
In the bathroom fight, which is like iconic at this point, in the white bathroom in Mission Impossible Fallout, like, you know, Ethan Hunt is getting tossed around by this fighter, right? Who's like the villain or whatever, who they think is the villain. And eventually he gets tossed down, and he's like about to come up, and he's like, all right, okay. Like he's just tired.
Yeah.
But that just proves, I'm like, wow, like Indiana Jones even influenced a lot of what Mission Impossible does now. And
well, I mean, I've always kind of seen that. Like Tom Cruise always does those little like facial gestures. Oh. You know, like you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's like in Ghost Protocol when Simon Pegg reveals that he's gonna have to climb the Burj Khalifa, and he just gives him that look.
Yeah.
I'm just like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is really good at that, of just giving one small look to show how like Ethan Hunt doesn't want to do this. What do you think of this brawler fight? I've been going on a lot.
I love it. Do you mind telling you where I put it?
Yeah. Where do you have it?
I put it number 3. Not number 4.
Okay.
I didn't have time to read through the whole script, but I skipped to interesting parts or highlight scenes just to kind of skim through the script. And I just want to read to you an excerpt from the propeller death in particular.
Oh, okay,
which is like very iconic. You know, that's an awesome death scene.
So good, yeah.
It says, under the moving wing, Indy delivers a knockout right across to the German mechanic, which sends him staggering back towards a roaring propeller. Indy's grimace registers the man's demise, and a fine mist of blood wafts toward him. It's just good writing.
It's Lawrence Kasdan, man.
Yeah, my number 4 is the bar shootout. I think the bar shootout's also very good. But I would just, same deal, just like they're all great. They're all actually awesome. So when I say very good, I'm not just trying to be like, oh, it didn't really impress me. Like, no, it's fucking awesome. But I'm more just saying that in comparison to the others, I think, I'm just thinking about which ones are the most memorable versus ones that I don't think about as often.
Right.
And so, I put the bar shootout for mine.
So bar shootout is number 4. For you, Brawler Fight's number 3. For me, number 3 is Bar Shootout.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
The reason I have it slightly above is this. It's your first interaction with both Marion and Indiana together, obviously, but it's also showing how, like, Indiana Jones fucks things up so quickly.
Yeah, oh yeah. How he just, right when he was asking for a favor, it just leads to him burning it down.
Burns the entire bar. Like, he comes in and you think he's gonna save Marion, and he burns the entire bar down. It's one of my favorite things. Number 2 is, again, this might be controversial. Number 2 is the opening escape.
Oh yeah, that's mine too. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Why don't you start? Because I feel like I've been talking a lot about it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the opening, it's a fucking opening. What is there to say, right?
This is what I love. This is what I love about doing lists with you, is just you're just like, why the fuck are we doing this?
I know. Well, I know. When you first, just to be clear for listeners and viewers, when you first said like, "Oh, let's write our favorite scenes," I thought it was pretty corny, and I don't, I'll do it still, but I'm just not. It's just not stuff that I personally connect with, and I'm not knocking other people who do that or other podcasters. It's just not my thing. But I was like, you know what? If listeners and viewers will enjoy it, I'll go for it, and it'll be a good conversation starter, and better than just walking through the action scenes and just recapping them.
To be honest, I just wanted a section where we just hit on these sequences. Because most likely when people click on this podcast, they want to hear us talk about the set pieces.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, how do we do it without just like listing them off? So maybe like ranking them would be a good idea. Yeah. So peek behind the curtain. But yeah, so how do you feel about this opening escape? What do you think stands the test of time about it?
I mean, it's just so... The filmmaking is so elegant, like it's so simple.
Elegant, yes.
Yeah, but it just like the lighting and stuff is so perfect. I don't know how to explain it without just being like it's really good.
Well, I'll start with something. I think this will be a good point to set it off.
Yeah.
So I feel like this set piece basically, and we're not talking about his entrance and him going into the cave, which is all great. Yeah. We're talking about from the moment he switches
once
the
he
idol
takes
with
the idol. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Right. For some damn reason, every Indiana Jones montage or every movie montage that has a Spielberg movie shows the shot of Harrison Ford looking at the golden idol.
Yeah.
And I always think about that. I'm like, that sequence has so many iconic moments, but why is it that shot? And it's because it's doing what Spielberg does best, which is his character looking at the thing and idolizing it and looking at it in like awe and wonder. Mm-hmm. The Spielberg face is like very apparent, but it's that one small push in that I feel like when I think of Indiana Jones, I think of that shot.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? Going up, like leading up to that moment, like right when Alfred Molina and Harrison Ford are like just entering, right when they get past the stay out of the light scene, when they see the idol up ahead.
Yeah.
My girlfriend was watching with me, and she literally said, I gotta say, this movie is damn impressive. like leading up to, there's just something about
and we're just like 6 minutes in.
Yeah, exactly. You watch it and you're like, wow, like this is a movie.
And yeah, and then we obviously go into like him switching it up, everything hell breaking loose. And I already said the line about Spielberg wanted to feel like a Disneyland ride. Yeah, which is so interesting.
And right down to Alfred Molina betraying him. All of a sudden.
I mean, what that line, "Adios, Senor," is like so iconic.
He runs away and just gets nailed by.
So I listened to I'm a huge fan of the Rewatchables podcast, and the host Bill Simmons was talking about how "Adios, Senor" and the guy betraying Indiana Jones. That's basically in every action movies in the '90s and like like that move has been copied so much of like the assistant betraying him and just going off.
Well, and then him saying it back to him shortly after too. That's a trope that's kind of been done. Is like the bad guy is saying something kind of smug, and then the hero saying it back, and like when it backfires on him.
Also, just kind of how fucking awesome it is that Alfred Molina's in this.
Oh, I know. I didn't realize that until I just watched it again.
Really?
I did not fucking realize that.
That's so funny.
I was like, it's funny because I was watching.
It's funny how much you kind of forgot about
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like I really I'm pretty rusty in the Indiana Jones. Like I went deep into it just recently because of this podcast.
Yes.
But upon watching it again, I was looking, I was like, that's not Is that
Yeah,
Alfred?
dude.
And then I see his name fade in on the credits. I was like, no shit, that's Alfred Molina.
It's so good, and he has such a great, like, the fact that he got a line like that, "Adios, senor." And
Yeah.
it's so iconic. In this short amount of time, through action, you get to learn everything you need to know about Indiana Jones. He's a human. He's vulnerable. He's not a superhero.
Exactly, and he's scared.
He's scared. Just the branch thing that I already discussed. He has people after him, but he's doing things for the right reason with the whole "it belongs in the museum," all that stuff. He runs away, gets in the plane, realizes there's a snake in there. And he's like, "I hate snakes. I hate them."
There's a big snake in here.
You're like, "Okay, we're off. I know everything we need to know about this character." And that's it.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm in. I'm completely in.
Yeah.
It's just... Is this like the best opening for a movie? I don't know.
I don't know. It might be,
Well,
especially
like,
for an adventure movie. I would say probably.
For like,
I would say like in terms of
for an action movie, like I would say 100%.
yeah, when people assemble like iconic, especially for Spielberg movies, but you know, iconic action scenes or whatever, it's the boulder.
Did we even talk about the boulder?
We're about to. We're about to now.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, like as soon as that fucking huge boulder comes down, you just see him like.
Well, you know what? Again, what the shot that I see another shot that I see the most.
Yeah.
I see the Indiana running away from the boulder and the boulder behind him, but I see the shot of him pushing in on him as he sees it, and like him turning
Exactly,
around.
that's what it is.
It's that Spielberg
fear.
shot. Dude.
Yeah.
It's what he does so well. It's that fucking fury. And he's just like, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know
And
how
you
they...
feel that adrenaline. You feel that like something about like the way it's shot, because there are a lot of cuts, and you know, it's very frenetic filmmaking, but it works. It's so smooth. Like the geography of the scene is so like laid out.
You know how they did the boulder? They fucking did it. They shot that.
They just had a giant boulder and rolled it.
Jesus Christ, yeah. And it was extremely dangerous. And Harrison Ford is in a lot of the shots. I mean, there's a stunt double, but there's like, Harrison Ford did most of it. I mean, to this day, Harrison Ford got injured like crazy filming Dial of Destiny, because the guy's still like, I want to do a lot of it. I mean, the guy still likes doing his own stunts. He likes to be on the ground and just do the dirty work still.
I know. I'm like, he's so old.
A part of me was like, when he was shooting Dial of Destiny, I'm like, guys, let's protect this man. Like, why are we letting him do this? Come on.
It's like commendable and respectable, but it's also a little worrisome.
But I'm just like, I won't have Harrison Ford dying on set. Like, I won't have that. Like, let's protect him.
Hey, he made it. The movie's about to come out. So,
I know. And like,
we're here now.
I don't know if you saw it, but like, he did this whole speech at Cannes, because that's where the movie premiered.
Okay.
And he started getting emotional once everyone did a standing ovation for him, and he was on stage and he legitimately started like almost crying. He got emotional.
Oh.
And you don't see Harrison Ford like that, but there's a part of me that senses that like this character means a lot to him, obviously, but you can also sense that he's getting old, you know? So you can see it's like, this is probably my last time doing anything as this character, and like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot really put myself in the shoes of something like that. That's a type of achievement that I don't think I'll ever be able to really properly fathom.
Harrison Ford's one of the most successful movie stars ever.
Exactly, so.
Okay, so this boulder scene
Pretty good.
Is great. I get kind of emotional thinking about how good it is. No, I'm
Come
not.
to think about it.
Well, sometimes that happens to me. And okay, you know what? This is a good segue to get to the number one and why I picked it as number one. I think you and I probably have the same one.
Probably, yeah.
Wow, truck chase?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Holy shit,
You see
dude.
the-
Fist bump.
you
I
see
didn't
the-
know you would have that as the number one.
What do you think it would be?
I thought it would be the boulder run.
That's fair, too, yeah. But the truck chase I see, and I'm like, that is from like just an achievement in cinema.
It's
That's
impeccable filmmaking.
It's insane. As soon as like I saw Harrison Ford like under the truck
dude.
climbing, I was like, yo, this is like happening.
The shot that it happens for me is when he gets pushed out the windshield and he like holds on to the car.
Yeah.
And the bars are coming off, and I'm like, that's fucking Harrison Ford
On the front of a moving truck.
There's this photo, and I'll share it with the editor so you guys can see it as well. There's this amazing photo of like them actually filming that scene on location with the guy hanging. And I'm saying that as it's like a crazy thing, cause it fucking is. No one does that. The reason we go crazy over Tom Cruise is that he's the only man that's still doing shit like that.
Sure, yeah.
Or they don't make movies like that anymore. And
yeah, they're often very safe behind a blue screen and with a stunt double still.
something that this scene also highlights that we haven't really touched on is every action sequence in this movie is heightened from a 10 to like 100 because of John Williams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, even throughout when they're not doing the action scenes, even when they're just doing the discovery, searching for clues,
Yeah.
the music really carries you through that intrigue and curiosity
Oh my
that the
God.
characters have.
But the character theme, not the score,
Yeah.
because my favorite score from Williams is Jurassic Park, and more on that later.
We'll cover that another time.
That episode needs to be like 5 hours long. Like,
Us just talking about Jurassic Park.
I don't think I could fit it into like an hour and a half time slot. That's like we'd have to do like 3 weeks of episodes on that.
Oh, God, I know.
We could go on forever. But this is my favorite character theme that John Williams has done.
Okay.
Because every time it fucking hits, it hits hard in this truck scene. Every time he beats one of them, it starts again like dun 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 dun.
Yeah, or when he swings on the rope in the opening.
Yeah.
And he's being chased by the...
But staying on this scene real quick, because I don't want to go on too many tangents, but staying on the scene, it's a great showcase of what Harrison Ford does as a movie star, especially in this movie, is, like I was saying, he's not like a quip master or whatever.
Yeah.
But his like little sighs and smirks are all over the scene.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it, is just like, yeah, we're seeing cool action happen, but Harrison Ford is doing so much work with just his expressions that make you like feel and relate to the character.
He has that... This is a weird example. He has that kind of Clint Eastwood charm where he can cover so many emotions just through his facial expressions.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood has kind of... At least late Clint Eastwood has like one tone.
Yeah.
But I think what Harrison Ford's able to do a little bit better is like comedy.
Oh, he's very expressive. Yeah, they're completely different. I'm more just saying they both have that skill.
We're just from their face. Their face adds so much.
Yeah, like you don't need dialogue because they're expressive enough to tell the story for you.
The two moments really get me in this scene. Mm-hmm. The him hanging by a rope and being dragged.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's insane.
Because I'm just like, they're fucking filming that.
And how persistent he is, too, in the context. Because the whole thing is that the bad guys are driving away with the Ark.
Yeah.
And he's basically, like, just not giving up going after it.
Well, we get the famous line right before it happens of him telling Salah and Marion that, like, I'll catch up with you guys, but I gotta go get this Ark, right? Mm-hmm. And Salah asks him, like, what are you gonna do? And he says, which is a very iconic line, I don't know, I'm making up this as I go.
Yeah, yeah.
Making this up as I go. And it's like, it just says who he is, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
He literally makes it up as he goes. He's like, all right, I guess we're hanging off this thing. He just goes underneath the car.
We're going for it.
Yeah, it's that shot, and then there's another shot that's like not by the truck, but right when the scene's about to start, is when Indiana Jones is on a horse and he sees the truck. But the camera's moving with him and the horse, and he sees the truck down there. And I'm like, that's just geography.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just good shit.
That's just Spielberg doing what he does best, which is like setting up where the characters are, what the goal is, and how he's going to get there all in one shot. Not like... And it's not even like, I'm going to do a oneer because I can. It's because this is what's important for the scene.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that Spielberg has, that he makes look really simple and easy.
Yeah.
But it takes so much brain power to convey the story that way.
He blocks his movies like they're musicals.
Yeah.
Which is why he ends up doing West Side Story and does it so well, is because, like, he hides these huge oneers into these shots that feel like 8 shots in one. Every Frame of Painting has a great video on this called the Spielberg Oneer that I think brought attention to a lot of people, how Spielberg's been doing this for a while.
Sure.
Ever since Jaws. The truck chase scene is just fucking beautiful, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's 8 minutes long. It's so long.
Oh yeah, I know. It just fucking goes.
And what I love is the whole punchline at the end, is because throughout the truck chase, he's like punching people. You know, the famous Indiana Jones punch, which is his big fat swing.
The swashbuckling, adventurous punch.
Yeah, and he gets shot, right? So after that whole truck chase scene, after he gets the truck or whatever, the scene ends with him just being like smirking and then being like,
yeah.
But it's not, I like that there's no line. There's no like thing that he says. It's just that like, oh God, that hurt.
Yeah, he's not even impressed by himself.
Which I'm just like, that's the fucking character. That's how you like create great action movie heroes.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to talk about the themes a little bit? I mean, there aren't like
I'd love to, because Raiders definitely has some.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look too deep into it, to be honest. I mean,
I like how I said Raiders has themes.
Yeah. But I mean, especially compared to Temple of Doom.
Last Crusade has a lot of that, just because it's treated as like a finale, but it also has the daddy issues thing coming into play.
Yeah.
But yeah, Temple of Raiders actually surprisingly has a lot of stuff to say about certain things.
Yeah, there's this kind of weird like karma energy happening in the movie. You know, the idea that like, well, even just the idea of the Nazis having to use a Jewish artifact to, you know, get the power that they want.
Well, yeah, the guy says he's like, I don't know how I feel about this Jewish ritual.
Yeah,
he's like, where would you rather do it, in front of Hitler? Like,
well, and then I know, and you watch it, and you're like, no, do it in front of Hitler, so it kills him too, basically.
I know, and it's also like there's this constant thread of Indy kind of being warned. I'm just like, do you really want to go through this thing? I mean, it's been hidden for a while.
Yeah, and he's just kind of looking for it for like glory.
And also just like, I feel like I need to do the right thing and put it into a museum or whatever. But I'm just like, maybe we should just leave that shit alone.
Sure, yeah.
Like, if Hitler's looking for it, maybe we should just leave that alone.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't get involved in this. But it's such simple, like I said earlier in this podcast, that it's so cut and dry who the bad guys and the good guys are.
Well, that's why Nazis are the best movie villains of all time.
Yeah, and video game villains too. I mean, how many video games have you killed Nazis? It's just
Nazi zombies.
Nazi zombie, yeah. It's just like whatever, right? But so yeah, but there is an interesting thing that, you know, I've heard people look into it as like, you know, it's kind of like a Jewish revenge fantasy because it's directed by Spielberg.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the idea of like, you know, the energy of God coming out of that fucking ark and just burning them all alive, you know?
And I had this in like when we talk about the ending set piece, but there's like so many horror elements with that sequence, it's insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Down to their faces melting. And
Jesus. I mean, like,
it's iconic.
I think we should hold on to that for just a second because I do want to discuss one more thing with the themes, is that this is touched upon in Last Crusade like a lot more, but when it comes to Indy as like a character, there's a lot of like letting go, like pushing to just be like, focus what's in front of you, especially from Marion. I'm just like, focus what's in front of you, because at the end there's this like sad ending for Indy, at least, of just like, you said we get to do research on it. It's like, and you will. We have our top men on it.
Yeah.
It's like, who? Our top men. And then you see it disappear into this big, like,
this big warehouse of other artifacts, presumably.
Right. And, you know, but it goes with Marion. Marion just lends her arm and they kind of walk off together. It's like, I'm still here. You know what I mean? What's interesting is that final shot is so, like, it could be looked at so many different ways. And other Indiana Jones movies end in a very, like, hero wins way. Temple of Doom ends on that kiss of all the kids coming around them. Last Crusade ends
the sunset riding off
as Sean Connery and Indiana riding off into the sunset. So cool. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull ends with like Indy taking the hat from Shia LaBeouf and putting it on. He's like, I'm still Indiana Jones.
Yeah, the wedding.
At the wedding. But it's so interesting that Raiders ends this way because I feel like it's trying to say something.
Yeah, it was a kind of. And it had this kind of mysterious music playing.
It's kind of like it could be looked at in one way. It could be looked at of just like the government has a lot of these secrets that you'll never know about.
Sure.
This is just one of them. Good job, Indy, but this is just one of them.
Yeah, you're just scratching the surface.
You're just a pawn. Or it could just be like, we're going to put this into hiding because if Hitler wanted it, maybe it's we got it away from him and that's all that was needed. We don't need to look into this or whatever. Like, it's just the idea that we have it. And I just think that's so interesting that like Spielberg was like, yeah, we're going to end it in this way that it could be interpreted in different ways. Now, I know Raiders of the Lost Ark has not looked at that in that way, but I think if you look at it in the context of all the others movies that comes out, I'm just like, that's pretty cool.
No, I mean, yeah, I took the words right from my mouth. It is a very interesting way to end it.
I think it's proper to start talking about the ending set piece now, because everyone always said. Everyone will always like, yeah, the ending is like oddly terrifying. Yeah. And, you know, it's funny. When I think of Raiders, I think a lot about the action set pieces or whatever that we talked about.
The adventure.
Yeah, but when I got to it, oh my God, they're burning and melting them alive.
Oh, yeah. It's just such a good shot. I forget the name of the villain with the glasses, the torturer dude.
Oh, the guy that you think is going to torture them with nunchucks, but instead it's a hanger.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird. But he's such a quirky, villain. But but that close-up shot of his face is melting.
They did that. That's actual like practical effects.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen a long time ago, like a video breaking down how they did it.
Yeah.
And people trying to recreate it, of course, or people just trying to do their own versions.
Young filmmakers trying to do
exactly.
that
It's like perfect for that sort of thing.
It's like watching like Evil Dead and trying to do that. Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah, I get that. But I also just like Indy protecting Marion at the end.
Yeah,
just being like
telling her to close her eyes, don't look at it, and
don't look at it, and just caring about her. Like I feel like the scene for Indy, that moment is to protect Marion.
Yeah,
and not to be like, I need to see the Ark. What's going on? I need to protect the Ark.
He let that part go and didn't have that relief of the villains getting their comeuppance. You know, he was more about staying alive and keeping Marion alive.
It is interesting that ending with being a horror movie.
Yeah.
That's basically what Temple of Doom becomes.
Oh yeah, then that's the whole Temple of Doom. Yeah, which I was surprised by how many kind of violent elements that were in this movie still, even for the time.
But I love that. I love how edgy it is.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's not as much as Raiders, but I do think people don't remember that part about Raiders because it gets overshadowed by how fucking batshit crazy Temple of Doom is.
Yeah, exactly. But there's like a dude getting shot in the head. There's people getting impaled, and there's all sorts of good shit.
For today's for today's 4-quadrant movie standards, that's not generally accepted. Like, again, I hate to keep mentioning this, but Dungeons and Dragons comes out. It doesn't do that same kind of violence. It doesn't have that same kind of grittiness or edginess because I think they've pulled it back a lot because now the rating system is different. I mean, Temple of Doom was there wasn't a PG-13 rating system, so it was rated PG.
And it seems like back in the day, the way everyone talks about movies they grew up with, like I hear so many people say they grew up with RoboCop, which that movie's amazing, but that movie is gory as hell.
Well, I think there's also parts of it that I feel like sometimes, and I don't want to be this guy that just be like kids these days or whatever, but I do feel like the best part about being a kid is watching stuff that might be a little too violent for the age you're in.
Or edgy or something. Yeah, not even just violent, but maybe raunchy.
And it kind of just, I feel like that's an interesting movie experience to have as a kid.
Sure.
To just be like, oh, I had to close my eyes for those 5 minutes or whatever. Because that's what makes movies memorable as you grow up. Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God, I remember how scared I was as a kid. Or I remember, it feels like those movies stick with you longer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I remember closing my eyes frequently in Jurassic Park. Growing up at that movie.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Which, again, trying not to segue into Jurassic Park.
No, I'm telling you, we're going to have to do a month-long extravaganza for the podcast for that movie.
Yeah, just a non-stop live stream, just purely discussing Jurassic Park.
All right, so thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening to our Raiders of the Lost Ark podcast, our very first podcast.
Yeah.
We're really excited to keep doing this, so please let us know what you think of this format. It might be weird to see us like this.
Yeah. And now we're going to transition over to the after show.
So stick around if you're a patron.
Yeah.
Stay nice, dudes.